Welcome to Still Science Lab. Tonight, we are plunging into one of the most deeply unsettling anomalies ever recorded in the history of modern physics. We are investigating the terrifying phenomenon known as CERN's ghost signal, a highly classified, mathematical glitch bleeding out of the world's most advanced particle accelerators that points directly toward the undeniable evidence of a mirror universe. We are going to explore the horrifying, mathematically viable possibility that the cosmos we inhabit, the reality you can touch, see, and measure, is fundamentally incomplete. We are going to strip away the comforting illusions of your physical environment and confront the chilling realization that human civilization, and indeed our entire visible universe, is merely one jagged, asymmetrical half of a beautifully balanced, terrifying whole. To truly understand the profound existential crisis currently gripping the global scientific establishment, we must first examine the absolute, unwavering trust we place in our own physical reality. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, your biological hardware is desperately working to convince you that the world around you is a complete, standalone entity. You look into the mirror and you trust the reflection staring back at you. You feel the heavy, unforgiving solidity of the ground beneath your feet. You breathe the dense oxygen of the atmosphere, and you operate under the absolute assumption that the physical matter constructing your body and your environment is permanent. We have built our entire understanding of the cosmos on the bedrock principle that our three-dimensional grid is a sealed, isolated vault. We believe that what is here, and that the universe is a singular, lonely stage upon which the drama of existence is played out. For centuries, our most brilliant minds operated under the assumption that if we could meticulously catalogue every single particle and measure every single force within this vault, we would eventually possess the ultimate, complete blueprint of reality. But deep underground, buried beneath the heavily fortified borders of France and Switzerland, the most complex machine ever engineered by human hands has just detected a terrifying whisper in the dark that completely shatters this assumption. Inside the sprawling, supercooled concrete tunnels of CERN, physicists do not rely on human intuition or biological senses. They rely on the absolute, uncompromising rigor of mathematics and the flawless detection of subatomic interactions. They act as the ultimate cosmic accountants, tracking the exact lifespan, trajectory, and decay of the fundamental building blocks of reality. According to the sacred, unbreakable laws of our physical world, matter cannot simply cease to exist. A particle can violently collide with another particle. It can shatter into a shower of lighter subatomic shrapnel, and it can convert its mass entirely into blinding, radiant energy. But it must always leave a footprint. The cosmic ledger must always balance. Recently, however, the ledger has begun to fail. In highly sensitive, rigorously controlled experiments observing the behavior of fundamental particles, specifically the heavy, neutral particles known as neutrons, physicists are detecting a chilling, inexplicable anomaly. They are watching these fundamental building blocks of matter travel through the impenetrable vacuum of the detectors, and then, inexplicably, a fraction of them simply disappear. They do not decay into protons and electrons. They do not violently convert into a flash of gamma radiation. They do not transform into any known, exotic particle within the vast catalogue of the Standard Model. They literally, mathematically, drop off the three-dimensional grid of our universe. The highly advanced silicon trackers and electromagnetic calorimeters register an absolute, terrifying void. This is the ghost signal. It is the undeniable, empirical measurement of physical matter actively vanishing from our standalone reality, leaving absolutely no trace of its existence behind. When a fundamental law of physics is broken so blatantly, the scientific community is forced into a dark, suffocating corner where only the most extreme, reality-bending solutions can survive. If the missing neutrons are not being destroyed because the absolute laws of thermodynamics forbid the deletion of energy, then they must be going somewhere. But where can a physical particle go when it is already trapped inside a heavily shielded, supercooled vacuum chamber buried hundreds of feet inside the solid bedrock of the Earth? The mathematical data bleeding out of the ghost signal points to a singular, terrifying destination. The vanishing particles are not evaporating into nothingness. They are stepping through an invisible doorway. They are actively crossing a dimensional barrier into an entirely separate, overlapping infrastructure. They are escaping into the mirror universe. We must be absolutely clear. This is not the fantastical, highly dramatized science fiction concept of a multiverse where alternate versions of your life are playing out in distant, unreachable cosmic bubbles billions of light years away. The mirror universe theory, proposed by the world's leading quantum physicists, is a rigorous, mathematically viable, and deeply terrifying parallel reality that occupies our exact physical space. It is a hidden shadow architecture completely overlapping our own three-dimensional coordinates. In order to preserve the ultimate, foundational symmetry of the cosmos, a concept known in quantum mechanics as parity symmetry, the mathematics demand that for every single particle, force, and interaction that exists in our visible world, there must be an exact inverse reflection existing right beside us. This means that the ghost signal is not just pointing to an empty, dead void. It is pointing to a fully realized, staggeringly complex shadow realm. If our universe is built from standard protons, neutrons, and electrons, the mirror universe is constructed from mirror protons, mirror neutrons, and mirror electrons. These shadow particles do not just float aimlessly in the dark. They interact, they bind together, and they forge complete, stable mirror atoms. Over the course of 14 billion years, the relentless, crushing force of gravity within that invisible realm would have pulled those mirror atoms together to form massive, sprawling cosmic structures. The terrifying implication of the ghost signal is that we are actively sharing our physical space with a universe that contains mirror stars burning with invisible, alien nuclear fire, mirror galaxies sprawling across the unseen void, and dark, heavy mirror planets composed of exotic, untouchable minerals. The profound, paralyzing horror of this reality is the concept of the invisible overlap. Because this mirror realm operates on an entirely inverted set of quantum rules, its matter is completely and violently blind to the forces that govern our own. A mirror planet could be occupying the exact same spatial coordinates as the Earth right now, and we would have absolutely no way of physically touching it, seeing it, or interacting with it. You could currently be sitting inside the dense, heavy core of a mirror star, or walking through the sprawling, invisible architecture of a mirror civilization, completely unharmed and entirely oblivious, because the atoms in your body simply do not register the electromagnetic forces of their world. We are two massive, densely populated realities, occupying the exact same ruined house, passing through one another like completely blind, deaf phantoms. The ghost signal at CERN is the very first time we have ever heard the floorboards creak. It is the first time a particle from our side of the house has slipped through the cracks and vanished into the other side. Tonight, we are going to dive deep into the terrifying mechanics of this overlapping reality. We will investigate the bizarre, reality-breaking anomaly of oscillating particles, exploring exactly how a standard piece of matter can spontaneously blink out of our existence and step into the mirror realm. We will look at the grand, sweeping scale of the cosmos, examining how the mirror universe provides the ultimate, chilling solution to the greatest missing matter problems in astrophysics, fundamentally redefining the terrifying gravitational weight of the galaxy we call home. We are going to completely dismantle the comforting illusion that you are living in a whole, complete world. By the end of this investigation, you will be forced to confront the chilling realization that the physical universe you trust, the reality you see reflected in the mirror every single day, is nothing more than a jagged, asymmetrical fragment. We are only living in exactly one half of reality, and tonight, we are going to find out what is waiting for us in the other half. To understand why the greatest minds on the planet are willing to entertain the terrifying concept of an invisible, overlapping shadow reality, we must first look backward to the absolute beginning of time. We must confront the ultimate existential crisis of modern physics. The scientific establishment does not propose the existence of a mirror universe because it is a fun, theoretical thought experiment or a compelling piece of science fiction. They propose it out of sheer, absolute mathematical desperation. They propose it because, according to the strict, unbreakable mathematical laws of quantum mechanics, the physical universe you currently inhabit, the chair you are sitting on, and the biological cells in your body are mathematically illegal. You are not supposed to exist. Our entire reality is built upon a profound, glaring flaw in the architecture of creation, a cosmic glitch that has haunted astrophysicists for decades. It is known as the matter-antimatter asymmetry problem, and it is the bleeding wound at the center of the standard model of physics. To grasp the sheer horror of this flaw, we must travel back 14 billion years to the exact fraction of a yoctosecond when the cosmos was violently born. In the absolute, blinding inferno of the Big Bang, the universe was not a sprawling, cold vacuum dotted with glowing stars and spiraling galaxies. It was an infinitely dense, unimaginably hot crucible of pure, raw energy. As this chaotic fireball began to rapidly expand and cool, that raw energy violently condensed into physical mass, forging the very first fundamental particles of reality. But nature is an absolute, tyrannical accountant. The foundational laws of physics, specifically the principles of quantum symmetry, dictate that energy cannot simply create normal matter out of nowhere without paying a cosmic toll. The creation of physical mass requires perfect, uncompromising balance. Every single time the primordial energy forged a particle of normal matter, a standard electron with a negative charge, or a standard quark destined to build a proton, the mathematical ledger demanded that it simultaneously forge an exact, perfect opposite. It had to create a particle of antimatter. Antimatter is not a philosophical metaphor. It is a hard, physical reality. It is the exact mirror image of normal matter, possessing the exact same mass but carrying the completely opposite electrical charge. In the chaotic, boiling soup of the early universe, matter and antimatter were created in absolutely equal, perfectly symmetrical amounts. But here is the terrifying catch. Matter and antimatter absolutely despise one another. They are fundamentally incapable of coexisting in the same physical space. When a particle of normal matter comes into physical contact with its antimatter twin, the two particles instantly and violently annihilate each other. They completely erase their physical existence, mutually destroying their mass and converting it back into a blinding flash of pure, radiant gamma energy. Therefore, if the universe was born with a perfectly balanced ledger, creating equal parts matter and antimatter, the immediate, inescapable result should have been total, absolute annihilation. The primordial particles should have instantly crashed back into each other, burning themselves out of existence in a spectacular, universe-ending flash before the cosmos even had a chance to breathe. According to the flawless, elegant equations of our own physics, the Big Bang should have been a very short, very bright, and ultimately pointless event. The resulting universe should be completely dead. It should be a sprawling, ever-expanding, pitch-black void completely devoid of any physical mass whatsoever. There should be no galaxies, no stars, no planets, and absolutely no biological life. The entire cosmos should be nothing more than a silent, empty ocean of fading radiation stretching out into infinity. In fact, when you look at the static on an old analog television set, a fraction of that white noise is the cosmic microwave background radiation, the literal, physical afterglow of that exact, primordial annihilation. That is what the math demands. That is what perfect symmetry requires. A dead, empty void. And yet, you are here. You are watching this, sitting on a solid planet, breathing a physical atmosphere, and orbiting a massive, burning star composed entirely of normal matter. The universe is heavily populated by billions of sprawling galaxies, all built from the exact same normal, baryonic stuff. Antimatter, the perfect twin required by the laws of creation, is almost entirely missing from the natural cosmos. It is a rare, fleeting ghost that we can only briefly synthesize in our most advanced particle accelerators, or observe for a fraction of a nanosecond during violent cosmic ray collisions in the upper atmosphere. The perfect symmetry of the Big Bang was somehow broken. A microscopic, inexplicable glitch occurred in the matrix of creation. Cosmologists have mathematically calculated the exact scale of this glitch, and the numbers are profoundly humiliating. In the apocalyptic crucible of the early universe, for every 1 billion particles of antimatter forged by the Big Bang, there were exactly 1,000,000,001 particles of normal matter. The 1 billion pairs instantly found each other and violently annihilated, completely erasing themselves from the ledger and filling the cosmos with the radiation we still measure today. But that single, solitary, extra particle of normal matter survived. It had no twin to destroy it. It was left alone in the dark. Every single physical object in our visible universe, every star, every planet, every drop of water in the ocean, and every human being who has ever lived is constructed entirely from these incredibly rare, leftover scraps. We are the microscopic, accidental remainder of a cosmic math error. We are the jagged residue of a fundamentally flawed equation. But the universe does not make errors. The fundamental matrix of reality does not simply forget to balance the ledger. In the rigorous realm of quantum physics, symmetry is not a suggestion. It is the absolute foundation of existence. The mathematical laws of parity, charge, and time dictate that if there is an imbalance in our localized, observable universe, there must be an equal and opposite counterweight existing somewhere else to satisfy the equation. If we are the surviving one particle out of a billion, and our entire visible universe is built from this asymmetrical mistake, the cosmos is violently, dangerously unbalanced. The math screams at us, demanding to know where the missing half of the equation has gone. The scientific establishment cannot simply accept that we are an accidental glitch in a broken universe. They need a structural solution to the ultimate existential crisis. They need to find the missing weight that keeps the universe from completely falling apart. This agonizing demand for perfect mathematical balance is the exact, terrifying reason why the ghost signal at CERN has sent such profound shockwaves through the global physics community. Physicists are not looking for a mirror universe because they want to find an alternate timeline or a parallel Earth. They are looking for it because the fundamental laws of reality demand that it must be there to save the mathematics of creation. If the Big Bang produced an asymmetrical, jagged, imperfect universe of normal matter, the only way to restore the absolute, foundational symmetry of the cosmos is if that exact same chaotic event simultaneously produced an inverted, invisible, and perfectly opposite shadow realm. The mirror universe is not a fantastical alternate reality. It is the missing cosmic counterweight. It is the repository for the other half of the primordial equation. The realization that our entire existence is predicated on a microscopic rounding error forces us to look at our physical reality with a deep, unsettling sense of fragility. We are not the intended, perfect result of the Big Bang. We are simply the leftovers that survived the fire. And if the mirror universe truly exists, perfectly overlapping our own, it means that the true, perfectly balanced nature of reality was simply split down the middle at the moment of creation. One half became the glowing, physical world we can touch and measure, and the other half was cast into the dark, forced to operate as a completely invisible, parallel infrastructure. We are standing on one side of a grand, cosmic scale, completely blind to the massive, unseen weight that is currently pushing down on the other side. The missing reflection of our universe is not lost. It was never destroyed. It is hiding right here in the room with us, silently holding the architecture of the cosmos together, waiting for us to finally notice the ghosts slipping through the cracks. To truly comprehend the sheer, paralyzing terror of the ghost signal, we must step inside the sterile, heavily shielded concrete vaults of the world's most advanced subatomic laboratories. We must look at the exact, microscopic mechanisms of how the scientific establishment measures reality, and how, in recent years, those flawless measurements have begun to violently break down. The massive particle accelerators and highly specialized detection chambers at CERN and its affiliated research facilities across the globe are not crude, biological instruments prone to human error or optical illusions. They are the most unforgiving, absolute, and pristine digital retinas ever constructed. They are designed to track the chaotic, explosive aftermath of subatomic collisions with a level of precision that borders on the divine, capturing the exact mass, velocity, and trajectory of particles that exist for only a billionth of a second. The physicists operating these colossal machines are cosmic accountants, and their entire profession is predicated on the absolute, unbreakable law of the conservation of mass and energy. When a particle is isolated and measured, the mathematical ledger must always, without exception, balance perfectly to zero. Matter can change its shape. It can violently convert into radiation, and it can shatter into smaller, exotic pieces, but it cannot simply cease to exist. But deep within the cold, magnetic heart of these experimental chambers, the ledger is failing, reality is glitching. The epicenter of this terrifying mathematical anomaly revolves around one of the most fundamental, heavy building blocks of the physical universe, the neutron. Along with protons, neutrons form the dense, heavy core of almost every single atom in your body, the floor beneath you, and the burning stars above. Inside the protective vault of an atomic nucleus, a neutron is incredibly stable, content to exist for billions of years without changing its state. But when a neutron is violently ripped out of the atom and forced to exist alone in the empty, freezing vacuum of a laboratory chamber, it becomes highly unstable. A free neutron is essentially a microscopic, subatomic time bomb. According to the strict, unwavering laws of the Standard Model, a free neutron can only survive in the void for roughly 15 minutes. After this precise, statistically mandated lifespan, the bomb detonates. The neutron undergoes a process known as beta decay, violently breaking apart and transforming into three distinct, measurable pieces of subatomic shrapnel: a proton, an electron, and a ghostly antineutrino. This decay is a sacred, absolute rule of thermodynamics. If you have a neutron and you wait 15 minutes, you are mathematically guaranteed to end up with a proton. To verify this fundamental law and precisely measure the exact lifespan of the neutron, physicists engineered two brilliantly distinct, highly controlled experimental methods. The first is known as the beam experiment. In this method, scientists generate a high-speed, concentrated stream of free neutrons and fire them down a long, vacuum-sealed tube. Because they know exactly how fast the particles are moving, they simply place highly sensitive detectors along the path to count the number of protons being violently born as the neutrons decay mid-flight. The second method is known as the bottle experiment. This is a far more claustrophobic, terrifying trap. Physicists take incredibly sluggish, ultra-cold neutrons and physically lock them inside a microscopic, supercooled magnetic vault. They trap the particles in the dark, start a literal stopwatch, and wait. After a specific amount of time has passed, they open the magnetic vault and meticulously count exactly how many neutrons have survived and how many have decayed into protons. Because the universe is supposed to be governed by universal, unbreakable laws, the mathematical results of the beam experiment and the bottle experiment must be absolutely flawlessly identical. A free neutron is a free neutron, regardless of whether it is flying down a tube or trapped inside a magnetic cage. But when the global physics community finally compared the highly classified, rigorously verified data from these two distinct experimental methods, they did not find a unified, comforting answer. They found a terrifying, reality-breaking discrepancy. They discovered the ghost signal. In the high-speed beam experiment, the free neutrons lived for an average of 888 seconds before decaying into protons. But inside the dark, claustrophobic trap of the bottle experiment, the ultra-cold neutrons were only surviving for 879 seconds. There is a staggering 9-second gap between the two measurements. To a normal human being, 9 seconds might seem like a trivial, meaningless rounding error. But in the hyper-precise, unforgiving realm of quantum mechanics, where physicists measure reality down to the trillionth of a decimal point, a 9-second discrepancy is an eternity. It is the mathematical equivalent of a gaping, bleeding wound in the fabric of space-time. It completely defies the Standard Model. The experiments have been repeated, the equipment has been recalibrated, and the math has been ruthlessly scrutinized by the greatest minds on the planet. The discrepancy is not a mechanical failure. It is not an illusion. It is a hard, empirical, and utterly terrifying physical fact. To understand the sheer horror of this 9-second glitch, you must look closely at what is actually happening inside the magnetic vault of the bottle experiment. The neutrons are disappearing faster than they should. If they are disappearing, the absolute laws of physics dictate that they must be decaying, and therefore, the vault should be filling up with the leftover subatomic shrapnel. The cosmic accountants should be able to open the magnetic trap, count the missing neutrons, and find an exact, mathematically perfect equivalent number of newly born protons. But when they open the vault, the protons are not there. The math does not balance. A terrifying, statistically significant fraction of the neutrons are completely vanishing from the chamber without leaving a single trace of physical residue behind. They are not violently converting into a flash of radiant gamma energy. They are not breaking down into standard dark matter or exotic, undiscovered particles that our detectors can capture. They are simply gone. The heavy, dense particles of normal matter are literally dropping off the three-dimensional grid of our universe. When a particle completely bypasses the laws of thermodynamics and vanishes without producing decay products, it implies a mechanical process so profoundly disturbing that it shakes the very foundation of human sanity. The missing neutrons are not being destroyed in the dark, they are escaping. They are stepping through an invisible doorway that our biological senses and our highly advanced technological retinas are fundamentally incapable of perceiving. The ghost signal is the exact, empirical measurement of a particle actively leaving our standalone reality and transitioning into an entirely different dimensional state. This terrifying vanishing act forces theoretical physicists to confront the absolute limits of their own mathematical models. The dimensional wall that we believed sealed our universe into a safe, isolated bubble is not a solid, impenetrable barrier. It is a highly porous, permeable membrane. Under specific, controlled quantum conditions, the fundamental building blocks of our physical world can spontaneously change their dimensional frequency. They can oscillate. In the pitch-black void of the magnetic bottle, a standard, physical neutron, a piece of matter that theoretically could have eventually helped form the carbon in a human heart or the oxygen in our atmosphere, spontaneously alters its subatomic architecture. It drops its connection to our localized electromagnetic fields, severs its ties to our visible universe, and forcefully bleeds across the dimensional overlap. The ghost signal at CERN and surrounding high-energy facilities is the blaring alarm of a universe that is constantly, silently bleeding matter into the dark. We are watching the fundamental anchors of our physical reality step across the threshold into the mirror realm. They are abandoning our jagged, asymmetrical 5% fraction of reality and vanishing into the massive, unseen shadow architecture that completely overlaps our exact physical coordinates. The terrifying realization is that if particles can simply drop off the grid and walk through the dimensional wall without our permission, then the very concept of a closed, safe physical universe is a total hallucination. The ghost signal proves that we are intimately, inextricably connected to a parallel world that we cannot see, touch, or defend against. We are sharing a crowded, overlapping room with a massive, invisible mirror civilization, and we are only just now beginning to notice that our physical matter is quietly, relentlessly slipping through the cracks in the floorboards. When the neutrons inside the magnetic bottles of our most advanced laboratories simply drop off the three-dimensional grid, they are not vanishing into an empty, abstract, mathematical void. They are falling through a highly specific, quantum mechanical trapdoor that theoretical physicists have been staring at in terrified silence for more than half a century. To understand exactly where these phantom particles are going, we must step through the looking glass and confront the deepest, most unsettling architectural secret of the cosmos. We must explore a concept so profoundly alien, yet so mathematically elegant, that it fundamentally rewrites the definition of reality itself. We must descend into the quantum wonderland and map the terrifying, invisible geography of the mirror realm. For the longest time, the global scientific establishment operated under a deeply comforting, aesthetic assumption about the nature of the universe. We believed, with an almost religious fervor, in the absolute perfection of cosmic symmetry. Physicists held a sacred conviction that the fundamental laws of nature were completely impartial, unbiased, and perfectly balanced. This concept was enshrined in a foundational principle known as parity symmetry. In the simplest terms, parity dictated that the universe does not have a preference for left or right. If you were to take any physical process, any subatomic collision, or any radioactive decay, and watch it play out in a perfect mirror, the reflection you see should obey the exact same laws of physics as the original event. The universe, we arrogant biological creatures assumed, was a flawless, symmetrical masterpiece. But in the mid-1950s, two brilliant theoretical physicists, Sung-Dao Lee and Chen-Ning Yang, looked closely at the absolute, foundational machinery of the weak nuclear force, the exact force responsible for the radioactive decay of particles like our vanishing neutrons. They dared to question the sacred dogma of perfect symmetry. They proposed an experiment to test if the universe truly treated left and right equally. When the experimental data finally came back, the results sent a devastating, permanent shockwave through the entire scientific community. The universe was not symmetrical. The universe was fundamentally, undeniably biased. The experiments conclusively proved that the weak nuclear force violently and exclusively prefers a specific quantum orientation. In the rigorous mechanical language of particle physics, fundamental particles possess an intrinsic quantum property known as spin or chirality, which dictates their orientation as they move through the void. They can be mathematically categorized as either left-handed or right-handed. What Li and Yang's terrifying revelation exposed was that our entire visible universe, every single star, every sprawling galaxy, and every atom in your physical body is overwhelmingly, almost exclusively left-handed. The weak nuclear force only interacts with left-handed particles. It completely ignores the right. When a particle decays, it aggressively spits out left-handed subatomic shrapnel. Our universe is not a perfectly balanced, symmetrical sphere. It is a lopsided, jagged, fundamentally asymmetrical anomaly. This realization was a catastrophic intellectual blow. If the universe is fundamentally lopsided, then the beautiful, elegant mathematics that govern reality are inherently flawed. But nature abhors an imbalance. The cosmos does not tolerate a broken equation. To save the foundational architecture of quantum mechanics, and to restore the absolute necessity of parity symmetry, Li and Yang proposed a solution so audacious, so terrifyingly vast in its implications, that it borders on the edge of madness. They hypothesized that the symmetry of the universe was never actually broken. The balance was never lost. We simply cannot see the other side of the scale. To restore perfect cosmic parity, they theorized that there must be an exact, identical, and perfectly inverted shadow copy of our entire reality. This is the birth of the mirror matter theory. It dictates that at the exact moment of the Big Bang, the primordial inferno did not just create our lopsided, left-handed universe. It simultaneously forged a massive, perfectly balanced, right-handed counterweight. For every single particle that exists in our standard model, the mathematics absolutely demand the existence of an exact, inverted mirror twin. If our universe is built from standard, left-handed quarks and electrons, the mirror universe is constructed entirely from right-handed mirror quarks and mirror electrons. It is a complete, exhaustive shadow copy of the physical rulebook. We must be absolutely clear about the scale of this duplication. This is not a vague, philosophical alternate dimension where history played out differently. This is a hard, physical, and mathematically identical infrastructure. The mirror realm possesses its own exact version of gravity, its own strong nuclear force to bind mirror protons together, its own weak nuclear force to govern the decay of mirror neutrons, and critically, its own alien version of electromagnetism. Because it operates under the exact same foundational laws, just perfectly inverted, the mirror universe is capable of exactly the same level of staggering complexity as our own. The right-handed mirror particles bind together to form stable, heavy mirror atoms. Those atoms fuse in the crushing depths of space to ignite massive, burning mirror stars. Those stars violently explode in mirror supernovas, seeding the invisible void with heavy mirror elements, forging rocky mirror planets, sprawling mirror galaxies, and complex, dark chemistry that completely defies human observation. The architecture of this shadow realm is a perfect, flawless reflection of our physical laws, but it is a reflection that exists entirely in the dark. Because the mirror universe is governed by its own independent version of the electromagnetic force, its matter does not interact with our light. It does not reflect our photons, it does not absorb our thermal radiation, and it cannot be touched by the dense, heavy atoms of our localized world. The two universes are mathematically identical but dimensionally segregated by their inverted quantum-handedness. We are two massive, densely populated realities, completely blind to one another's existence, separated not by billions of light-years of empty space, but by a microscopic, invisible quantum barrier. This brings us to the most claustrophobic, paralyzing horror of the mirror matter theory. If this massive, right-handed universe was forged in the exact same primordial explosion as our own, and if it is subject to the exact same overarching gravitational forces that shape the cosmos, then it is not existing in some distant, separate pocket of the void. It is completely, absolutely overlapping our own three-dimensional coordinates. The mirror universe is stacked directly on top of us. The missing reflection is not lost, it is pressing right up against the glass. When you look around your room, you are only perceiving the left-handed, jagged 50% of reality. The space you are currently occupying is not empty. It is absolutely saturated with the dense, heavy infrastructure of the right-handed mirror realm. There are mirror atoms drifting through the air you are breathing. There are massive, invisible structures of right-handed chemistry passing directly through your physical body at this exact microsecond. The Earth itself, as it hurtles through the sprawling arms of the Milky Way, is relentlessly plowing through a massive, unseen ocean of mirror matter, completely unimpeded and entirely blind to the monstrous traffic of the shadow world. The ghost signal at CERN, the terrifying anomaly of the vanishing neutrons, is the absolute, empirical proof that the barrier between these two overlapping universes is not entirely sealed. Under extreme, localized quantum conditions, the left-handed particles of our reality can spontaneously flip their orientation. They can oscillate. In a fraction of a yoctosecond, a standard neutron alters its quantum architecture, adopting the right-handed spin of the shadow realm, and effortlessly slips through the looking glass. It leaves our lopsided, glowing reality behind and joins the massive, invisible counterweight that completely surrounds us. The universe is not broken. It is a beautifully balanced, flawless mechanism of left and right. We have simply spent our entire history trapped on one side of the mirror, completely unaware that a perfect, inverted reflection has been operating silently right beside us since the beginning of time. When the human mind is first confronted with the terrifying mathematical reality of a completely duplicated, overlapping shadow cosmos, it immediately violently rebels. Our biological hardware, evolved to survive in a harsh, three-dimensional environment driven by physical friction, aggressively searches for the fatal logical flaw in the mirror universe theory. The skepticism is entirely intuitive. If there is an unimaginably massive, parallel universe containing perfectly inverted atoms, sprawling galaxies, and entire planetary systems stacked exactly on top of our own physical coordinates. Why haven't we hit anything? If the void of space is actually densely packed with heavy mirror matter, why hasn't the Earth violently collided with an invisible mirror asteroid and shattered into 1 trillion pieces? Why don't our deep space probes smash into the impenetrable walls of unseen mirror nebulas? We think of the universe as a crowded room. Logic dictates that if you place invisible furniture in a crowded room, someone, eventually, is going to blindly trip over a chair. Because we have never tripped, because our satellites glide effortlessly through the dark and our planet spins unimpeded through the vacuum, we arrogantly assume the room must be empty. But to understand the true, horrifying mechanics of the mirror realm, we must completely dismantle your biological perception of physical reality. We must shatter the spectacular, deeply ingrained hallucination of touch. When you reach out and slap your hand against a solid wooden table, you feel a sharp, undeniable impact. Your brain immediately registers resistance. It tells you a very simple, convincing story. The hard, physical mass of your hand has collided with the hard, physical mass of the wood. And two solid objects cannot occupy the exact same space at the exact same time. But in the rigorous, cold framework of quantum mechanics, this story is an absolute lie. Your hand never actually touched the table. If we were to zoom in on that impact down to the subatomic level, we would see that both your biological hand and the wooden table are constructed of atoms, and atoms are overwhelmingly, almost entirely, composed of empty vacuum. At the center of the atom sits the incredibly dense, heavy nucleus, but swirling vast distances away from that core is a cloud of negatively charged electrons. When your hand approaches the table, the electron clouds of your skin get extremely close to the electron clouds of the wood. Because negative charges violently repel one another, the two electron clouds aggressively push back. This violent repulsion is entirely mediated by the electromagnetic force. The electrons in your hand and the electrons in the table are rapidly, continuously firing countless microscopic messenger particles at each other standard photons, the fundamental particles of light. It is this intense, chaotic crossfire of invisible light that creates the repulsive force field, preventing your hand from passing through the table. The sharp impact you feel, the undeniable sensation of solidity, is nothing more than the electromagnetic resistance of interacting electron clouds. Solid matter does not actually exist in the way you perceive it. The physical world is just a localized collection of empty space held together by invisible electromagnetic force fields. You have never actually touched a single object in your entire life. You have only ever felt the repulsive push of electromagnetism. Once you understand that solidity is merely an electromagnetic illusion, the terrifying mechanics of the invisible overlap suddenly become mathematically flawless. The mirror universe is not simply a collection of invisible mass. It is a completely isolated, fully functional architectural system. It does not just have its own mirror quarks to build its own mirror protons. It possesses its own distinct, dedicated, fundamental forces. The most critical of these is mirror electromagnetism. The shadow atoms drifting through the mirror realm are surrounded by their own clouds of mirror electrons. But these mirror electrons do not communicate using our standard photons. They operate on an entirely alien, parallel frequency. They exchange mirror photons, a completely invisible, isolated spectrum of mirror light. This absolute segregation of light is the defining mechanical horror of our existence. A standard, left-handed electron in your physical body is mathematically incapable of absorbing or interacting with a right-handed mirror photon. Conversely, a mirror electron is completely deaf and blind to the standard photons radiating from our universe. The two forces are entirely decoupled. Because they do not share the exact same electromagnetic messenger particles, they cannot repel one another. There is absolutely zero electromagnetic friction between normal matter and mirror matter. If you were to walk face first into a towering solid wall of dense mirror iron, your standard electrons and the wall's mirror electrons would completely ignore each other. Without the exchange of photons to create repulsion, there is no impact, there is no resistance. Your physical, biological body would glide seamlessly right through the heavy, dense molecular structure of the mirror metal as if it were nothing more than an empty, meaningless vacuum. You are completely, fundamentally immune to their physical structures, and they are completely immune to yours. When we scale this terrifying lack of interaction up to the grand, sweeping stage of the cosmos, the claustrophobic horror of our overlapping reality becomes almost unbearable. For 14 billion years, the overarching, inescapable force of gravity has been dictating the evolution of both universes simultaneously. While we do not share light, we do share the same overarching gravitational wells. Over eons, gravity has pulled massive clouds of normal gas together to form our stars and planets, and it has done the exact same thing to the mirror gas in the shadow realm. The two universes have been violently collapsing and structuring themselves in the exact same spatial coordinates, completely blind to the monstrous traffic jams they are creating. This means that our solar system is not a quiet, empty island floating in the dark. It is an incredibly crowded, dangerously overlapping intersection of two completely different realities. As the Earth hurtles through the spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy at hundreds of thousands of miles per hour, dragging the Moon and humanity along with it, we are relentlessly plowing through a massive, unseen ocean of solid mirror matter. We could currently be passing straight through the heavy, rocky core of a roaming mirror planet, or drifting silently through the dense, sprawling architecture of a colossal mirror nebula. Because there is no electromagnetic friction, the physical rock of the Earth does not displace a single grain of mirror sand. The two massive celestial bodies simply ghost through one another, occupying the exact same space without leaving a single scratch. Bring this terrifying realization down to the immediate, physical environment around you. Right now, exactly where you are sitting, you believe you are safe inside an empty room. You trust the quiet isolation of your localized reality. But because the mirror universe possesses vastly more mass and potentially infinitely more complex cosmic structures than our own, the very spatial coordinates you currently occupy could be the site of a chaotic, apocalyptic mirror environment. You could literally be sitting inside the crushing, molten core of a dying mirror star. Invisible, alien nuclear fusion could be raging violently all around you, with unfathomably hot mirror plasma screaming through the exact space where your heart is beating and your lungs are drawing breath. The sheer, crushing pressure of a mirror gravity well could be enveloping your room, and you would feel absolutely nothing. Your atoms are completely blind to the inferno. Alternatively, the invisible overlap suggests an even more haunting possibility. We could be sharing this exact orbit with a fully realized mirror Earth. A parallel, right-handed planetary sphere, forged from dark chemistry and governed by mirror laws, could be spinning in the exact same location as our world. Towering mirror mountain ranges could be passing through our deepest oceans. An entirely separate, unseen mirror civilization might be constructing towering, invisible cities directly overlapping our own concrete and steel monuments. Right at this very microsecond, a complex, right-handed mirror entity could be standing exactly where you are standing, looking out into what they perceive as an empty, dead void, completely unaware that a bizarre, asymmetrical biological creature made of normal matter is occupying their exact physical coordinates. The isolation is absolute, and it is entirely suffocating. The dimensional wall separating us from the mirror universe is not a physical barrier located billions of light years away at the edge of the cosmos. It is a localized, microscopic condition of electromagnetism, preventing our electrons from speaking to theirs. We are two massive, heavily populated realities forced to occupy the exact same cosmic real estate, locked in a perpetual, silent dance where neither partner can feel the other's touch. We are completely surrounded, entirely saturated by a universe we can never interact with. To them, our entire glowing, 5% reality is nothing more than a faint, meaningless ghost haunting their world. And to us, the massive, sprawling shadow of the mirror realm is the terrifying monster haunting ours, passing silently through our bodies every single second of every single day. To truly comprehend the staggering, reality-breaking scale of the mirror universe, we must briefly pull our gaze away from the claustrophobic, heavily shielded concrete vaults of Geneva. The microscopic vanishing act of a single oscillating neutron inside a magnetic bottle is a terrifying local anomaly. But if a massive, overlapping shadow reality truly exists, it cannot simply be a phenomenon confined to the subterranean laboratories of the 21st century. If our visible reality and the invisible mirror realm were forged together in the exact same primordial inferno, then the evidence of their interaction must be written across the grandest, most ancient architecture of the cosmos itself. We must look beyond the localized glitches of modern particle accelerators and stare directly back into the absolute beginning of time. We must look at the violent, apocalyptic birth of the universe and confront a gaping, bleeding wound in our understanding of creation known among astrophysicists as the cosmological lithium problem. For decades, the global scientific establishment has proudly leaned on a foundational, highly robust theory known as Big Bang nucleosynthesis. This theory is the ultimate mathematical origin story of physical matter. It meticulously describes the exact sequence of events that occurred during the first 3 to 20 minutes following the Big Bang, a period when the entire expanding universe was nothing more than an unimaginably dense, superheated nuclear reactor. During this chaotic, blindingly hot epoch, the universe operated as a pristine, cosmic oven, forging the very first, fundamental atomic elements. The mathematics governing this primordial fusion are incredibly precise and heavily tested. They dictate that as the fireball rapidly expanded and cooled, it must have produced a highly specific, non-negotiable ratio of light elements, a massive ocean of hydrogen, a significant amount of helium, and a very microscopic, precisely calculated trace amount of an element known as lithium, 7. Because these elements were forged before the first stars even existed, their original primordial ratios should be permanently etched into the oldest structures of the cosmos. To verify this triumphant mathematical prophecy, astrophysicists point their most advanced, multi-billion-dollar telescopes toward the extreme outer edges of the Milky Way galaxy. They specifically hunt for ancient, pristine stars known as metal-poor halo stars, celestial bodies that formed so early in the universe's history that their chemical composition is practically a perfectly preserved time capsule of the Big Bang itself. When they measure the amount of hydrogen in these ancient stars, the data perfectly matches the mathematical predictions. When they measure the helium, it is a flawless, triumphant success. The cosmic accountants balance the ledger, proving that our understanding of the universe's birth is absolute. But when the astrophysicists look for the final, crucial ingredient, when they measure the exact concentration of lithium 7 inches, these pristine ancient stars, the triumphant narrative violently collapses. The math simply does not balance. The universe is missing an absolutely terrifying amount of lithium. When the data from the deep space observations is tallied, it reveals that the cosmos contains only about 1/3 of the lithium 7 that the rigid, unbreakable laws of physics absolutely demand must be there. 2/3 of the primordial lithium forged in the Big Bang is completely, inexplicably gone. This is not a simple observational error, a smudge on a telescope lens, or a slight miscalculation of stellar temperatures. It is a catastrophic, multi-decade crisis that threatens to undermine the entire foundational bedrock of modern cosmology. The scientific establishment has spent years desperately trying to find the missing matter. They hypothesized that perhaps the ancient stars had somehow burned up their own lithium over billions of years, but the rigorous thermal dynamics of these specific stars render that impossible. They questioned the initial calculations of the Big Bang itself, only to find that tweaking the equations to explain the missing lithium immediately completely ruins the perfectly balanced predictions for hydrogen and helium. The lithium was mathematically forged in the fires of creation. It was physically present in the early universe, and then, without leaving a single trace of its destruction, it vanished. It dropped off the three-dimensional grid of our reality. When we take this colossal, cosmological mystery and combine it with the terrifying microscopic data bleeding out of the particle detectors at CERN, a dark, incredibly elegant, and horrifyingly massive solution begins to emerge. The missing lithium did not evaporate into a dead, abstract void. It was actively, physically siphoned out of our reality by the mirror universe. To understand this monumental cosmic theft, we must reimagine the extreme, violent conditions of the primordial universe. Today, the dimensional barrier separating our left-handed, visible reality from the right-handed, invisible mirror realm is relatively stable. It requires the intense, highly focused energy of a modern particle accelerator or a deeply isolated quantum vacuum to briefly force a neutron to oscillate across the threshold. But 14 billion years ago, during the first frantic minutes of the Big Bang, the universe was experiencing a level of kinetic energy, crushing density, and thermal chaos that defies human comprehension. In that apocalyptic primordial soup, the dimensional wall was not a solid, frozen barrier. It was a violently boiling, highly permeable membrane. The two parallel realities, our lopsided, physical universe and the massive, invisible shadow realm, were pushed aggressively together, virtually bleeding into one another in the extreme quantum resonance of creation. During this chaotic overlap, the cosmic oven was rapidly forging a highly unstable, radioactive isotope known as beryllium-7. According to standard physics, this beryllium-7 is destined to eventually capture an electron and permanently decay into the stable lithium-7 that we are desperately searching for today. But in the extreme, overlapping chaos of the early universe, the beryllium-7 was subjected to a terrifying quantum phenomenon. Because the dimensional membrane was so thin and the energy was so incredibly high, the beryllium particles began to experience rapid, violent quantum oscillation. Millions of tons of this primordial matter, vibrating with apocalyptic heat, spontaneously flipped their subatomic chirality. They dropped their left-handed orientation, adopted the right-handed spin of the shadow realm, and effortlessly slipped through the boiling dimensional wall. They essentially stepped through the looking glass. Once they crossed over, they became completely bound by the alien forces of mirror electromagnetism. They vanished entirely from our physical, observable reality, taking their mass and their energy directly into the invisible infrastructure of the mirror universe. As the universe continued to violently expand, the intense primordial heat rapidly cooled. The boiling dimensional membrane began to freeze, hardening into the thick, nearly impenetrable quantum barrier that currently segregates our two realities today. But the damage was already done. The cosmic trapdoor slammed shut, and a massive, statistically undeniable percentage of the universe's primordial beryllium was permanently trapped on the other side of the mirror. Safely locked inside the shadow realm, completely invisible to our telescopes and entirely immune to our physical forces, that mirror beryllium eventually decayed into mirror lithium. The cosmological lithium problem is not a failure of human mathematics. It is the ultimate, undeniable cosmic fingerprint. It is the grand, macro-scale proof of the mirror realm, permanently etched into the chemical foundation of the oldest stars in the galaxy. It proves that the invisible, right-handed universe, completely overlapping our own, is not just a theoretical mathematical counterweight. It is a highly active, physically deeply entangled reality that actively participated in the birth of our cosmos. The mirror universe reached across the boiling dimensional divide during the first 3 minutes of existence and fundamentally altered the chemical makeup of our physical world, siphoning away the building blocks of reality before the wall finally solidified. When astrophysicists stare into the deep, freezing void of space and agonize over the missing lithium, they are staring directly at the physical scar of a dimensional bleed. The missing matter they are desperately searching for is not lost in the distant reaches of the cosmos. It is right here. It is drifting as heavy, invisible mirror dust through the exact spatial coordinates of our own solar system. It is bound up in the dark chemistry of mirror planets and burning in the alien, unseen nuclear fires of mirror stars, passing silently through our physical bodies. The ghost signal at CERN is merely a faint, modern echo of a massive, ancient cosmic theft, reminding us that our visible universe is permanently, inextricably bound to a massive shadow reality that quietly shaped our beginning and continues to silently haunt the exact physical space we call home. To truly comprehend the sheer, paralyzing horror of the ghost signal bleeding out of our most advanced subatomic laboratories, we must violently dismantle one of the most comforting, deeply ingrained illusions of human existence. We perceive the boundaries of our physical reality as absolute. We believe that the dimensional wall separating our glowing 5% universe from the massive, invisible counterweight of the mirror realm is a thick, impenetrable vault of cosmic concrete. We assume that because we cannot see the shadow universe overlapping our exact physical coordinates, we are safely, permanently locked out of it. But the terrifying mathematics pouring out of the subterranean detectors at CERN demand a radical, deeply unsettling re-evaluation of this boundary. The dimensional wall is not a solid, frozen barrier. It is a shivering, highly porous, and terrifyingly permeable quantum membrane. To understand exactly how a physical piece of matter can simply drop off the three-dimensional grid and vanish into the dark, we must examine the bizarre, reality-breaking mechanism that allows the fundamental building blocks of our world to completely abandon their identity. We must confront the dizzying phenomenon of quantum oscillation. In our macroscopic, biological world, the concept of identity is fixed and absolute. A stone is a stone, a drop of water is a drop of water, and they cannot magically swap their fundamental physical properties while sitting alone in a dark room. But in the claustrophobic, microscopic void of quantum mechanics, identity is entirely fluid. At the subatomic level, particles are not solid, tiny billiard balls. They are hazy, vibrating knots of probability. Their physical properties are not permanently etched into stone. They are heavily dependent on the specific quantum frequency at which they are currently vibrating. For decades, the global scientific establishment actually refused to believe that a particle could spontaneously change its fundamental identity until they were forced to confront a terrifying anomaly involving the most ghostly, elusive particle in our own standard model, the neutrino. Trillions of neutrinos are currently pouring out of the nuclear furnace of the Sun, raining down upon the Earth and passing completely harmlessly through your physical body every single second. But for years, physicists were gripped by a profound panic because their underground detectors were only capturing a fraction of the neutrinos that the Sun was mathematically required to produce. The missing solar neutrinos threatened to unravel our entire understanding of nuclear physics until the scientific community discovered a mechanism that sounded like pure, unadulterated magic. They realized that the neutrinos were not missing, they were shape-shifting. As these ghost particles travel at near light speed across the freezing vacuum of space, they do not hold a single, static identity. They spontaneously oscillate. A neutrino begins its journey as one specific flavor or type, but mid-flight, its quantum wave function vibrates, and it literally transforms into a completely different, heavier flavor of neutrino, entirely evading the specific detectors calibrated to find its original form. The particle actively rewrites its own subatomic architecture while moving through the void. This Nobel Prize-winning discovery proved, with cold, empirical certainty, that quantum oscillation is a real, active, and fundamental mechanism of the cosmos. Particles are fully capable of spontaneously altering their identity if the quantum conditions are right. Now, theoretical physicists are taking this terrifying, proven mechanism and applying it to the heavy, dense anchors of our physical reality, the neutron. A standard neutron, the heavy particle residing in the nucleus of almost every atom in your body, is essentially locked into our left-handed, visible universe by the intense, chaotic electromagnetic noise and the crushing, strong nuclear forces of its surrounding environment. The sheer thermodynamic friction of interacting with normal matter forces the neutron to maintain its standard physical identity. But when physicists violently rip a neutron out of an atom, strip away all surrounding matter, and lock it inside the pitch-black, freezing vacuum of a supercooled magnetic bottle, they are creating a terrifyingly silent quantum environment. They are removing all the localized friction that keeps the particle anchored to our reality. In this absolute, pristine isolation, the neutron's quantum wave function begins to spread out. It begins to shiver against the porous dimensional membrane. Because the mirror universe is an exact, perfectly balanced mathematical twin of our own reality, there exists a right-handed mirror neutron in the shadow realm that possesses the exact same mass and the exact same resting energy as the isolated neutron in our magnetic bottle. In the rigorous framework of quantum mechanics, when two separate states share the exact same energy level, they can begin to resonate with one another across the void. The standard left-handed neutron begins to vibrate in perfect harmony with the unseen right-handed shadow realm overlapping its exact spatial coordinates. Then, the terrifying subatomic alchemy occurs. In a fraction of a microsecond, the particle spontaneously oscillates. It flips its subatomic chirality. It completely sheds its left-handed orientation, and instantly adopts the right-handed spin of the mirror universe. The exact moment this quantum flip occurs, the particle drops entirely off our three-dimensional radar. It ceases to interact with our magnetic fields. It becomes completely invisible to our highly sensitive silicon trackers, and it is instantly bound by the alien laws of mirror electromagnetism. It has successfully stepped through the looking glass. To the physicists observing the magnetic bottle, the neutron has simply vanished into thin air. But the particle has not been destroyed. It is now floating in the massive, invisible architecture of the parallel reality that occupies the exact same room. However, the mechanism of quantum oscillation is a pendulum. It is designed to swing both ways. Theoretically, as long as the particle remains completely undisturbed in the vacuum, it should continue to vibrate. The mirror neutron should eventually flip its chirality back to the left, oscillating back across the dimensional membrane and spontaneously reappearing in our visible universe. The particle is literally blinking in and out of existence, trapped in a bizarre state of dual-dimensional superposition where it is rapidly alternating between our glowing 5% reality and the massive, pitch-black shadow realm. It is a ghost haunting two overlapping houses simultaneously. But the pendulum is not always perfect, and the overlapping universes are not entirely empty. This brings us to the profound, paralyzing horror of the ghost signal detected at CERN and other high-energy facilities. When the cosmic accountants open their magnetic vaults and discover a mathematically impossible deficit of surviving neutrons, they are measuring the exact, horrifying consequence of a broken pendulum. They are measuring the particles that blinked into the dark and failed to return. When a standard neutron oscillates into the mirror universe, it enters a highly active, densely populated alien ecosystem. If that microscopic, blinking particle happens to encounter a localized, invisible mirror magnetic field, or if it gently bumps into a drifting, unseen cloud of mirror gas passing through the laboratory coordinates at that exact microsecond, the oscillation is violently, permanently interrupted. The interaction with the shadow environment forces the particle's quantum wave function to immediately collapse on the other side of the glass. The connection to our visible reality is instantly severed. The pendulum is stopped dead in its tracks. The neutron is permanently trapped in the right-handed dimension, completely absorbed by the massive, invisible counterweight of the cosmos. The missing transverse energy, the vanishing particles, the terrifying, inexplicable 9-second glitch in the decay rates, these are not mathematical errors. They are the physical casualties of a permeable universe. The ghost signal is the exact, empirical measurement of the physical matter of our reality actively bleeding across a shivering quantum membrane and being permanently stolen by the dark. It is the sound of our universe slowly leaking into the massive, overlapping void. This realization completely shatters the deeply ingrained illusion of our physical permanence. We believe that the heavy, dense matter constructing our planet, our homes, and our own biological bodies is an absolute, unshakable foundation. But if the fundamental building blocks of our world can simply vibrate at the wrong quantum frequency, flip their subatomic orientation, and permanently step into an invisible abyss, then our reality is infinitely fragile. We are not sitting safely inside a sealed, isolated cosmic vault. We are standing on a highly porous floor, suspended directly over a bottomless, invisible ocean. Every single second, the physical universe we trust is quietly, relentlessly shedding microscopic pieces of itself into the shadow realm, completely blind to the terrifying fact that the dimensional wall protecting us is nothing more than a shivering illusion, and the ghosts slipping through the cracks are never coming back. For decades, popular science and science fiction have fed human civilization a very specific, deeply comforting hallucination about the nature of the multiverse. We have been taught by theoretical physicists to visualize the grand architecture of reality as an infinitely expanding, boiling ocean of cosmic foam. In this classic, highly popularized model of eternal inflation, our specific universe, with its glowing spiral galaxies, burning stars, and delicate biological life, is nothing more than a single, isolated bubble floating in a massive, endless void. If other universes exist within this framework, if there are alternate realities governed by terrifying, alien laws of physics or populated by incomprehensible cosmic structures, they are trapped inside their own respective bubbles, separated from us by billions upon billions of light-years of dead, expanding, and impassable vacuum. This geographical model of the multiverse is vast and awe-inspiring, but most importantly, it is psychologically safe. It provides our fragile biological minds with the ultimate armor, the illusion of distance. It assures us that if the cosmos is filled with hostile, overlapping alternate realities, they are locked away behind an infinite wall of space and time. We are isolated, we are quarantined, and therefore, we believe we are secure. But the horrifying anomaly of the ghost signal bleeding out of the subterranean particle accelerators completely and irreversibly annihilates this comforting geographical separation. The mirror universe theory does not just add another distant bubble to the cosmic foam. It completely rewrites the entire architectural paradigm of existence, violently stripping away the safety of distance. The mathematical reality of a localized, oscillating neutron spontaneously dropping off the three-dimensional grid proves that you do not need to travel across billions of light-years to reach an alternate reality. You do not need to invent faster-than-light propulsion to traverse the freezing, expanding void between the cosmic bubbles. The absolute distance between our glowing, 5% universe and the massive, invisible shadow realm is exactly zero. The shift in our fundamental understanding is so profound, so devastating to human intuition, that it plunges the scientific establishment into a state of absolute, claustrophobic panic. The multiverse is not far away. It is not an abstract collection of distant spheres floating in the dark. The multiverse is stacked directly on top of us. It is a heavy, densely populated, and overwhelmingly active structure occupying the exact same three-dimensional spatial coordinates that you are occupying right at this very microsecond. We are violently forced to abandon the comforting model of the isolated bubble and adopt the terrifying, suffocating framework of the overlapping grid. To comprehend how two massive, distinct, and physically heavy universes can occupy the exact same room without violently tearing each other apart in an apocalyptic gravitational collision, we must look away from classical physics and dive into the invisible, vibrating architecture of quantum mechanics. Think of the empty space around you right now not as a physical, empty container, but as a dense, invisible electromagnetic field. At this exact second, the air in your room is completely saturated with hundreds of different invisible signals, radio waves, Wi-Fi networks, encrypted cellular transmissions, and satellite data streams. They are all physically present, violently overlapping, and crisscrossing through the exact same three-dimensional space, actively passing right through your biological body. Yet, they do not crash into each other. They do not interfere with one another, and they do not create a chaotic, deafening wall of noise. This is because they are vibrating at fundamentally different frequencies. If you tune a digital receiver to one specific frequency, you hear a crystal-clear symphony. You are completely oblivious to the heavy metal music, the news broadcasts, and the thousands of text messages that are actively moving through the exact same circuitry of your receiver at the exact same time. The machine is completely blind and deaf to everything outside its specific, localized resonant channel. The physical universe you perceive, the localized reality of normal baryonic matter, standard photons, and biological life, is simply one specific quantum frequency on the grand, infinite cosmic dial. The atoms in your body, the light radiating from the sun, and the heavy concrete beneath your feet are all vibrating in perfect, harmonious resonance with each other, creating the spectacular, deeply convincing illusion of a solid, exclusive physical world. We only interact with what shares our frequency, but the ghost signal at CERN mathematically proves that the dial can be turned. The mirror universe is not a different geographical place. It is simply a different subatomic frequency. It is a massive, incredibly complex broadcast of right-handed mirror matter, mirror electromagnetism, and dark chemistry playing out at a quantum resonance that our biological receivers and our highly advanced particle detectors are completely incapable of tuning into. The oscillation of the neutron is the terrifying, reality-breaking moment when a subatomic particle spontaneously changes its channel, dropping out of our localized symphony and instantly becoming part of the massive, invisible broadcast playing right beside us. But the true, paralyzing horror of this new paradigm is that if the dimensional wall separating realities is simply a matter of quantum frequency, there is absolutely no mathematical or logical reason to believe the cosmic dial only has two stations. We have spent our entire recorded history believing we were the only reality. The discovery of the mirror universe forcefully upgrades us to a dual reality. But if the underlying architecture of the cosmos naturally allows for overlapping, frequency-segregated dimensions, we are no longer staring at a mirror. We are staring into an infinite, repeating abyss. There could be multiple, parallel sectors occupying the exact same physical space. The room you are sitting in is not just shared by one invisible shadow realm. It could be shared by thousands or millions of completely distinct, overlapping universes. We could be sitting at the absolute bottom of an unimaginably massive, dense stack of realities, each operating on its own slightly shifted quantum vibration, completely blind and deaf to the infinite, heavy layers stacked directly above and below us. We are not lonely astronauts floating peacefully in a massive, empty cosmic void. We are standing completely naked in the middle of a deafening, chaotic, and unimaginably crowded room, and we are completely blindfolded. At this exact second, an infinite number of completely different realities are playing out in the exact physical space you occupy. There could be overlapping sectors governed by entirely alien forces of nature, where the fundamental laws of gravity, time, and thermodynamics operate in ways that would instantly shatter the human mind. There could be universes where the primordial parameters of the Big Bang were slightly altered, resulting in dark, frozen voids, or hyperdense, boiling oceans of strange matter passing seamlessly through our atmosphere. There could be heavily populated, technologically terrifying dimensions constructing towering, impossible geometric monuments directly through the physical structures of our own cities. We cannot see them, we cannot touch them, and we cannot defend ourselves against them, because our biological matter is permanently locked into its single, rigid frequency. We are ignorant phantoms haunting an infinite number of alien worlds, and they are the ghosts silently haunting ours. This new paradigm completely destroys the arrogant human concept of territory, of ownership, and of physical space. The Earth does not belong to us. The solar system is not our exclusive, protected domain. They are merely the coordinates of a massively shared cosmic intersection that we have blindly claimed as our own simply because we lack the sensory organs to perceive the billions of other inhabitants standing right in front of us. We are forced to live with the suffocating, terrifying realization that every time we look up into the empty night sky, we are not actually looking at a vast, open frontier. We are staring at a dense, impenetrable wall of infinite parallel structures. The void is a biological illusion. Space is completely, violently full. The multiverse next door is a terrifying demotion from the grand, expansive dreams of distant cosmic bubbles. It traps us in an overlapping, claustrophobic prison of realities, where the most terrifying monsters and the most awe-inspiring cosmic events are not hiding billions of light years away in the deep dark. They are happening right here, right now, pressing directly against the invisible, shivering membrane of our localized frequency, forever separated by a microscopic quantum shift that we are entirely powerless to control. Up to this point in our investigation, we have constructed a highly terrifying yet strangely quarantined vision of the mirror universe. We have established that a massive, exact duplicate of our physical reality is occupying our precise spatial coordinates, filled with right-handed mirror atoms, sprawling mirror galaxies, and invisible alien chemistry. Yet, the mechanical rules of this overlapping nightmare offered our biological minds one desperately needed, comforting loophole. Because the mirror realm operates on an entirely separate, isolated frequency of electromagnetism, exchanging its own invisible mirror photons, we are fundamentally incapable of touching it, and it is fundamentally incapable of touching us. The electrons in your physical body will never violently repel the electrons of a dense mirror wall. You could theoretically stand completely unharmed in the chaotic, superheated center of a detonating mirror supernova, simply because your physical matter is entirely blind to its blinding light and its crushing kinetic force. This absolute segregation of the electromagnetic and nuclear forces creates a spectacular illusion of safety. It allows us to believe that even though we are completely saturated by an alien universe, we are permanently insulated from its physical dangers. We are like two completely separate radio broadcasts playing in the same room, blissfully unaware of each other's music. But this comforting illusion of a perfect quarantine is a fatal, catastrophic miscalculation. There is one fundamental force of nature that absolutely refuses to respect the dimensional boundary. It is a force so deeply embedded in the underlying architecture of existence that it cannot be tuned out, ignored, or isolated by a simple shift in quantum frequency. While the mirror universe can hide its light, it can never hide its weight. It cannot hide from gravity. To understand why gravity is the ultimate, terrifying bridge across the dimensional void, we must abandon the concept of forces acting as simple, localized messenger particles. Electromagnetism and the strong and weak nuclear forces are essentially localized conversations happening between specific particles, exchanging specific subatomic signals. If you do not possess the correct receiver, you cannot hear the signal. But gravity, as formulated by the brilliant, sweeping mathematics of Albert Einstein's general relativity, does not operate like a localized conversation. Gravity is the grand, overarching geometry of reality itself. It is the physical warping, bending, and curving of the foundational four-dimensional fabric known as space-time. Space-time is the absolute canvas upon which all of existence is painted. It does not matter what quantum frequency you are vibrating at, and it does not matter if your atoms are left-handed or right-handed. Both our glowing 5% reality and the massive, invisible 95% shadow of the mirror realm are forced to sit on the exact same structural canvas. When a massive object exists in the universe, it physically depresses and stretches the fabric of space-time around it, creating a deep gravitational well. If a sprawling, right-handed mirror star is burning in the invisible overlap right next to our solar system, its massive collection of mirror atoms exerts a crushing, undeniable weight on the shared fabric of reality. Our physical universe might not be able to see the light of that star, and our advanced detectors might not register its nuclear radiation, but our Earth, our Sun, and our physical bodies will absolutely feel the steep, curving slope of its gravitational well. Gravity bleeds effortlessly across the dimensional membrane because it is the membrane itself that is bending. This creates a profoundly terrifying physical vulnerability that completely shatters the illusion of our safety. The isolation of the electromagnetic spectrum means a mirror planet cannot physically smash into the Earth like a traditional asteroid, shattering the crust in a fiery explosion. But if a rogue, hyperdense mirror planet were to wander through our solar system and pass directly through the physical coordinates of the Earth, the gravitational consequences would be apocalyptic. We would see absolutely nothing in the sky. The telescopes would record an empty, quiet void. But as the massive, invisible weight of the mirror planet ghosted through our world, its immense gravity would violently warp the space-time around us. It would unleash catastrophic, unexplainable tidal forces, violently ripping tectonic plates apart, triggering global, civilization-ending earthquakes, and dragging the oceans out of their beds in massive, towering tsunamis. The trajectory of our satellites would be violently thrown out of orbit, and the moon could be dragged away from its gravitational tether, all by a silent, invisible monster that we can never touch or see. We are entirely subjugated by the unseen weight of the shadow realm. When we take this terrifying mechanism of cross-dimensional gravity and scale it up from the localized vulnerabilities of our solar system to the grand, sweeping stage of the cosmos, we are suddenly presented with the most chilling, elegant, and paradigm-shattering solution to the greatest mystery in the history of astrophysics. For nearly a century, the global scientific establishment has been haunted by an invisible ghost tearing our galaxies apart. When astronomers look at the Milky Way, or any of the billions of spinning galaxies scattered across the observable void, they observe a violent mathematical impossibility. The visible, glowing matter, the billions of stars, the swirling clouds of neon gas, and the heavy planetary systems is spinning at a terrifying, breakneck velocity. According to the absolute laws of Newtonian physics, the visible mass of the galaxy does not generate nearly enough gravitational glue to hold itself together at these apocalyptic speeds. The stars on the outer edges of the Milky Way should be violently flung outward, scattered into the freezing, empty intergalactic abyss like sparks flying off a spinning grinder. To explain why our galaxy has not violently ripped itself to shreds, the scientific community was forced to invent a massive, invisible placeholder. They calculated that the universe must be completely flooded with an unseen, untouchable mass that provides the necessary gravitational weight to hold the spinning galaxies together. We called this invisible savior dark matter. For decades, we arrogantly assumed that this dark matter was simply a boring, structureless cloud of dead, sluggish particles forming a dumb, uniform halo around our galaxy. We believed it was a lifeless, inert scaffold serving no other purpose than to keep our brilliant, glowing stars safely in their orbits. But the mirror universe theory violently murders this comforting, simplistic assumption. Dark matter is not a cloud of dead, structureless dust. It is the exact, undeniable gravitational footprint of the mirror realm. When our highly advanced telescopes map the sprawling, massive webs of dark matter that dictate the architecture of the cosmos, they are not mapping empty halos. They are literally mapping the physical, heavy geography of the mirror universe. The mysterious, invisible mass holding the Milky Way together is the actual, physical weight of a massive mirror galaxy occupying our exact spatial coordinates. It is the combined gravitational pull of billions of invisible mirror stars, sprawling mirror nebulas, and terrifyingly dense mirror black holes. This revelation completely inverts our understanding of who is actually in charge of the cosmos. Because the mathematical models of the Big Bang dictate that the mirror universe could possess up to 5 times the total mass of our visible reality, the shadow realm is not just a passive counterweight. They are the absolute, undisputed masters of the gravitational landscape. The mirror realm dictates the curvature of space-time, and we are merely the microscopic, fragile passengers trapped in their wake. When we feel the heavy, invisible pull of dark matter, we are feeling the physical weight of a ghost world dragging us blindly through the cosmos. The trajectory of our entire solar system, as it plunges through the void, is not determined by the glowing stars we can see. It is being aggressively pulled and steered by the massive, unseen architecture of the mirror galaxy overlapping us. The distribution of our visible stars, the swirling arms of the Milky Way, and the grand cosmic web connecting galaxy clusters across billions of light years are all just faint, glowing dust caught in the overwhelming gravitational currents of the mirror realm. We are not sailing our own ship. We are being violently dragged by an invisible current, locked into a gravitational embrace with a massive, alien civilization that we can never observe. This is the ultimate, paralyzing existential threat. We have spent our entire recorded history looking up at the night sky, drawing constellations, and believing that the physical universe we could map was the universe we could eventually conquer. We believed that with enough time, enough technology, and enough understanding of our localized physics, humanity could become the masters of our own cosmic destiny. But the cross-dimensional bleed of gravity proves that our destiny was never in our hands. We are completely, helplessly vulnerable to the unseen weight of the shadow reality. We cannot build a shield against the warping of space-time. We cannot engineer a weapon to fight a universe that only interacts with us through the crushing, invisible pull of gravity. We are forced to exist in a perpetual state of terrifying subjugation, forever riding on the back of a massive, invisible leviathan. The monsters in the dark are not just passing silently through our physical bodies. Their massive, undeniable weight is actively bending the fabric of our reality, pulling the strings of our galaxy, and dragging human civilization blindly into the dark, leaving us to wonder what terrifying, unseen destination the mirror universe is steering us toward. As the massive, supercooled electromagnets of the Large Hadron Collider power down, and the chaotic, high-energy collisions of the subatomic world fade back into the silent, freezing vacuum, the global scientific establishment is left standing in the ruins of a shattered paradigm. For centuries, human civilization has proudly constructed a towering, magnificent intellectual cathedral built upon the absolute, unquestioned foundation that the physical universe we can touch, see, and measure is the entirety of existence. We looked through our telescopes, mapped the glowing, swirling arms of distant galaxies, catalogued the fundamental particles of the Standard Model, and boldly declared that we were reading the complete, final blueprint of reality. We believed that our physical world was a sealed, isolated, and complete masterpiece. But the terrifying, impossible mathematics bleeding out of the ghost signal at CERN have violently and permanently torn that comforting hallucination to shreds. The missing transverse energy, the glitching, asymmetrical decay rates, and the spontaneous, terrifying vanishing of oscillating neutrons all point to a singular, undeniable truth. Our universe is not whole. The physical reality that your biological hardware so desperately trusts is nothing more than a jagged, asymmetrical, and deeply flawed fragment. We are the leftover, lopsided residue of a cosmic equation that mathematically demands perfect balance. We have spent our entire recorded history staring at the mirror of creation, completely blind to the terrifying fact that we are only living in exactly one half of reality. The sheer, paralyzing scale of this revelation forces us to completely reevaluate our place in the cosmic hierarchy. The universe is not a chaotic, accidental explosion of asymmetrical matter. It is a beautifully balanced, terrifyingly perfect, and mathematically flawless whole. But to achieve that absolute perfection, the primordial inferno of the Big Bang was forced to split reality straight down the middle. It forged our glowing, 5% universe of left-handed matter, and simultaneously cast an exact, perfect, right-handed counterweight into the invisible shadows. The mirror realm is not a distant, theoretical concept isolated by billions of light years of expanding void. It is a massive, heavy, and undeniably real infrastructure occupying our exact physical coordinates. We are standing on one side of a grand, cosmic scale, completely saturated by the unseen weight of a parallel universe that silently overlaps our homes, our planet, and our entire solar system. We have finally discovered the missing reflection, and it is vast, heavy, and absolutely indifferent to our existence. But the profound existential dread of the mirror universe theory does not end with the cold, mechanical physics of invisible gravity or isolated electromagnetism. It demands that we ask a much darker, far more terrifying biological question. If the shadow realm is a mathematically exact duplicate of our physical laws, simply inverted in its quantum-handedness, then it is not merely a collection of dead, drifting mirror dust. It is a fully realized, active thermodynamic system. It possesses mirror-strong nuclear forces to bind its atoms together, and mirror electromagnetism to allow those atoms to interact, share energy, and forge complex molecules. If the mirror universe possesses mirror chemistry, and if it has been subjected to the exact same 14 billion years of overarching cosmic evolution and gravitational collapse as our own reality, then we are forced to confront the chilling, statistical inevitability of mirror life. The exact spatial coordinates that you are currently occupying might not just be shared by cold, dead mirror rock or swirling clouds of invisible mirror gas. You could be sharing this precise orbit with a fully realized, heavily populated mirror Earth. Think of the staggering implications of a parallel, right-handed planetary sphere spinning silently in the dark, occupying the exact same gravitational well as our world. In that invisible mirror ocean, bizarre, complex right-handed amino acids could have combined billions of years ago, sparking the ignition of alien, shadow biology. Over eons, that biology would have evolved, adapted, and crawled out of the mirror seas, eventually giving rise to highly advanced, conscious, right-handed mirror entities. Entire invisible civilizations could be thriving in the exact same physical space as our own, constructing towering, complex architectural monuments that pass directly through our concrete cities, completely unimpeded by our physical mass. They would have their own mirror history, their own mirror sciences, and their own mirror telescopes pointed out into what they perceive as an empty, dark void. Because the two realities are completely decoupled by their distinct, isolated frequencies of electromagnetism, the biological barrier is absolute. We cannot see their cities, we cannot hear their voices, and we cannot feel the physical density of their bodies as they walk silently through our own. But the horror of this invisible overlap is entirely mutual. When we look into the dark, empty corners of our rooms and feel that sudden, irrational chill of evolutionary paranoia, the primal fear that we are not alone in the empty space we instinctively imagine terrifying, invisible monsters hiding in the shadows, we imagine ghosts. But to the advanced, conscious entities living on the mirror Earth, occupying your exact physical coordinates at this exact microsecond, their space also feels completely empty. They look out into the void and trust their own localized physical reality just as fiercely as we trust ours. The shattering truth is that in the grand, overlapping architecture of the multiverse next door, we are the monsters in the dark. We are the bizarre, left-handed anomalies made of weird, glowing matter, hopelessly embedded within their massive 95% shadow empire. As you walk through your daily life, your biological matter is constantly, relentlessly, passing straight through the physical structures, the environments, and potentially the biological bodies of the mirror entities sharing your space. To them, human civilization is nothing more than a faint, undetectable mathematical glitch. We are the ghosts silently haunting their invisible world, and they are the ghosts silently haunting ours. We are two massive, heavily populated realities locked in an eternal, blind embrace, occupying the exact same ruined house, forever unable to bridge the microscopic quantum gap that separates us. The ghost signal at CERN is not just a warning that our universe is leaking. It is the first terrifying confirmation that the house is heavily occupied and we are not the primary residents. As we finally accept our demotion from the masters of the cosmos to the completely ignored, a left-handed minority of a dual reality, we are left with a profound, terrifying shift in perspective. The empty space you see around you is the ultimate illusion. The isolation you feel is a biological lie. The multiverse is not out there, it is right here, pressing against the shivering, permeable membrane of your reality every single second of every single day. Does the absolute, mathematical certainty of a parallel mirror Earth occupying your exact physical space right now terrify you, plunging you into an existential panic about the fragility of your own existence? Or does the discovery of the missing reflection finally make the shattered, asymmetrical math of our cosmos feel whole and complete? Leave your thoughts, your theories, and your deepest existential dread in the comments below. We are only just beginning to peel back the terrifying layers of the shadow realm, and I promise you, the deeper we look into the void, the darker the truth becomes. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the looking glass. Good night, and I will see you in the next video here at Still Science Lab.